talk to Mark Meirowitz, who is a professor at the State University of New York Maritime College, and he's joining us now live from New York. Thank you very much for joining us on the News Hour. So once again, the world's media back on Donald Trump.
Well, I have a few interesting points. First of all, it's Donald Trump's birthday tomorrow, and he's having a fundraiser tonight after being arrested and indicted. Here's another point that I think has been brought out. You know, there was a candidate for president in 1920 called Eugene V. Debs, who's a Socialist Party candidate, interestingly, was indicted under the Espionage Act of 1917, the same law that's being used against Trump, for protesting against World War I, because that's what that law was actually passed about, not about this scenario. So I think what you're seeing is literally our American political system is being torn apart by this. We're just seeing the beginnings of it now, but obviously it has had a really tectonic earthquake effect on American politics. No question about it. Absolutely no question.
And it's being reported now that he's pleaded not guilty at this court hearing in Miami. No surprise there, then?
No, no surprise at all. I mean, you know, and no surprise that his support as the Republican candidate for president, that's an important thing to keep in mind here. This is the leading Republican candidate for the presidency against President Biden. His support is going up, not going down. Each time he gets indicted and each time he has a legal proceeding, his supporters rally behind him. It seems counterintuitive. It is American politics. But what you end up having is confusion and chaos. We have a presidential campaign. Now, the argument that was made by the Trump lawyer before or earlier, you showed some excerpts of it. She was saying that this is a political prosecution because, you know, Biden said he had records in his garage and Hillary Clinton had the famous email server and so forth and so on. And a lot of Americans are becoming very concerned about their support of the judicial system. I'm a lawyer also, and it's very concerning that, you know, that this has been brought. Now, again, about the merits of it, again, we can talk about the merits of it. Clearly, Trump was very sloppy in terms of his retention of these records, no question about it. But it is unprecedented to bring a federal case against a sitting president in this fashion in the middle of a presidential campaign in a country like the United States of America. I mean, literally, you know, all of your ideas about American politics are thrown into question by this unbelievable show that we're seeing in Florida now. It is absolutely off the wall. I mean, it is just impossible. And candidly, and here's another one that you can think about. It's one that's not been mentioned either. And that is, if Trump actually gets elected president, he actually could pardon himself for these provisions, because the president under our Constitution can pardon himself only for federal crimes. Well, this is federal proceeding. So, I mean, you have what is really just a crazier than any soap opera or anything else that you could ever envision. But by opening up this Pandora's box, the government has really opened up the possibility of utter and complete confusion and chaos, besides the fact that Trump has a number of other legal proceedings. It's not the first time he's been indicted. He was indicted in New York in connection with the Stormy Daniels case. He also has a case pending in Georgia for interference with elections, and he had a civil case that he lost with a high verdict from someone who claimed that that he sexually harassed her or assaulted her. So it's just like, it's like a dam that there's breaking, and it's all of these things are occurring. And the question is, this is all that the American people are going to be talking about. This is exactly what happened with Watergate, with Nixon, when our entire system shut down. I just read that one of the United States senators has just taken the position that he is going to prevent, which he has the right to do, to put a hold on all nominees for positions in the Department of Justice. You're seeing a complete shutdown of how a system operates, but more importantly, the faith that people have in our justice system. Now, I'm not going to the merits of it, the sloppiness of it, and the violations and the allegations. That is a matter for the courts. That is a matter for the courts and for the jury. But the idea that if you're going to bring a proceeding against the President of the United States, unprecedented, to put it that way, well, you'd better have a absolutely solid 100% proceeding. And I just don't know if that's the case. That will remain to be seen.
You're talking there about faith in the system, but how can the American people have faith in the system if what you're suggesting is that the president is above the law?
I want to make clear that I'm not saying that the president's above the law. The president is not above the law. This is exactly the point that the special counsel, when he got up for his 5-second statement, is because Pence said, Vice President Pence is running for president also. And he said, how do you dare to make us, you're going to indict a president, you better bring out this indictment. And that's why on Friday afternoon, they brought out the indictment. They weren't planning to unseal it, I don't think, until today. And then Jack Smith, the counsel, got up and he said, everyone is equal. Well, again, the debate, the polarization in the American political system and the polity here among the people is, well, what about all those other presidents who have these documents? Honestly, I bet they are all doing their spring or summer cleaning right now to look around and see what they might have in their drawers or in their cabinets, because I think presidents probably do have documentation that they take that they probably shouldn't be taking. And the idea of the Presidential Records Act is to make possible a system, and there's no criminal penalties involved in that statute, where you work with the National Archives and you turn over your documents. Now, the point has been made, which is a good point, that a lot of the documents here, like the one he showed around at Mar-a-Lago, the plan of attack or whatever this was, are not presidential records. In fact, they are agency records and they're secret records. And there's no question that the sloppiness of this, as you stated before, to have the documents in the bathroom, in the ballroom, in the bedroom, is crazy. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. But again, what we have been accustomed to in American politics is craziness, just like Trump. Trump is always pushing the envelope, pushing the window, and doing things that we've never seen before. And that's also problematic, because we do need to have a stable political system. And to have a stable political system means to have a presidential campaign that can operate without interference. And this one is a big interference. And so the question is, how does this campaign proceed in a settled fashion with these proceedings and all of this going on? And that's worrisome. It's very worrisome, I think.
Clearly, Donald Trump, he's no stranger to the drama and the attention of today's proceedings. He's used to the world's media following him around. But how concerning is it that Donald Trump has struggled to pull together a legal team to defend him?
Well, he has a legal team. A couple of his lawyers, as you know, dropped out for reasons unbeknownst to anybody. Look, I mean, a lawyer, finding a lawyer, people are entitled to have legal representation. And on this particular case, there are truly some very complicated legal issues that are not settled. And the reason they're not settled is because, we don't go around indicting presidents every other Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday. We don't do that. I mean, we don't do it. So we really don't know. I mean, this is something which is groundbreaking. And what does it all mean? And, there are all kinds of questions come up. The other question that came up was the Judge Eileen Cannon. And the question there was that, well, she's a Trump appointee. And she had a ruling in favor of Trump in a documents case which was overruled by the appellate court. And the liberal media has been all over itself talking about, gee, this judge isn't going to be fair. They should force the judge to step down and recuse herself. But that to me is kind of, again, problematic argument, because we have to have faith in the legal system and the rule of law. And I agree with you, nobody's above the law. If we don't have faith in our judges, if we don't have faith in our legal system, then game over. That doesn't really work. And again, the impact is legal and it's also political. And that makes this proceeding so different than the usual judicial proceeding, because in the atmosphere, I call it the elephant in the room, what you have is our political system at stake and a presidential campaign season. That is unprecedented. A president being indicted for federal crimes, serious federal crimes, and during a presidential campaign season. Now about this Espionage Act, that's why I brought up Eugene V. Debs. The Espionage Act has some provisions in there about mishandling classified documents, no question about it. We're not going to the merits of it, but it was originally something that President Wilson used to basically clamp down on protest on the First World War. So, they pull out the statute, they pull this thing together, and I agree with you. I really reiterate again. Now, nobody's above the law, but the law has to be implemented in a fair fashion, including to a former president. And that's really going to be very, very difficult to find a jury and to be able to bring this proceeding and all of this in between a presidential campaign where we're going to have debates among the Republican candidates. We're going to have maybe a debate between the Republican and a Democratic candidate who's probably going to be Biden. Can you imagine that? I mean, it's unimaginable. Can you imagine the guy maybe will be convicted and he's going to be doing a debate? I mean, it's just, the brain cannot absorb this. And in the same sense, the American system doesn't need this. America and the world are faced with all kinds of big problems, and now we don't need this one. On the other hand...
Okay, Mark, these kinds of activities going on in the political system in the United States, but whatever happens in this case with Donald Trump, he will continue to divide America, won't he?
Well, it's true, but, interestingly enough, I think he was fading away, before all of these indictments. You had a lot of very good candidates coming up, and the problem that they had was Trump was in the way, but he was fading away, I think. And then they started with these indictments and these proceedings, and his supporters got energized, and then his numbers went up. I mean, this is exactly what happened here. Some have said, well, Biden really wants to run against Trump. Well, he might get that situation because of all of this. I mean, that's a polarized country. What we need in this country clearly is not this chaos. We probably need one of the other candidates. We've got a lot of good candidates. Nikki Haley, Pence, we've got Chris Christie, we've got Tim Scott. We've got a lot of candidates, but the problem is their numbers are low and they're up against the Trump factor. And as you see, Trump creates a magnetic pull on his supporters. And when they see this, and look, the Wall Street Journal is no January 6th radical. And they, in their editorial, call this a destructive indictment with inescapable political context. Now, let's understand, it's the Wall Street Journal, okay? Wall Street Journal of American industry. These are not your Trump supporters in the streets. And they're understanding what the problem is here is just this is dislodging the stability of the American system. So again, no one is above the law, but the Wall Street Journal says and compares, and this is not Trump's attorney, I mean, compares the Biden keeping of the documents in the garage, and then he said, well, I got a locked garage. And Hillary Clinton having thousands of emails. They say in the Wall Street Journal that was dispensed with, and this one should have been worked out in a different way under the Presidential Records Act, but not to bring it to this point. And I'm not going to the merits of it, but the political context here is tremendously important, because if recalling Watergate, Once we had Watergate and we had the Watergate hearings, the whole government came to a standstill. And by the way, our government's already divided. We have a Republican-controlled House and a Democratic-controlled Senate, which already means gridlock, and they hardly, almost let this country go into default because they couldn't agree on that, but they can't agree on anything, okay? So the bottom line is we're already completely polarized and dysfunctional. This one is kind of, you know, it's kind of when you have a cup of water and you add one more drop and then it all gets completely destroyed. This is exactly what we're seeing here. And Trump, you talk about his political influence, he's become more influential. Tonight he's going to have a fundraiser, and tomorrow is his birthday. I mean, again, the optics, and of course this is absolute catnip for the media. The media is covering this, of course you're covering it, and that's all fine, and that's what you should be doing. But the fact is that American people should be focused on other issues and also on their presidential campaign. So I would say this created a tremendous distraction. Now, what about the merits of the case? The merits of the case are, you know, I mean, clearly unbelievable to understand why President Trump kept these documents. Why did he keep them? What did he want with them? Why? He wanted to keep them to write a book? Did he want to keep them to show people? I mean, it's absolutely inexplicable why he kept these documents. And I think that that will be an important factor in the case, to figure out if he did this intentionally. Did he do it willfully? That's what the indictment says. I read the indictment. He did it intentionally or willfully. But if you think about it, he actually, I mean, this again, you know, he didn't, it's national security. Apparently he didn't show it to any foreign countries. He didn't really dislodge national security, but he did mishandle these documents. There's absolutely no question about it. Sloppy in the bedroom, in the bathroom, I mean, in the ballroom. It's so mind-boggling that you can't get your arms around it. On the one hand, it's crazy. On the other hand, clearly he shouldn't have done that, and there should be repercussions for it. But, you know, again, the American system really cannot stand this kind of a push. We already had January 6th. We had a run on the Capitol in the House. We had people invading the House of Representatives. We had that unbelievable spectacle of a bastion of democracy being invaded in that fashion. And now we have the potential with this event, if you think about it, where Trump could then be elected again as president. I mean, I have to say that in light of the people you questioned who are standing outside the courthouse, I'm as unenthusiastic about the people supporting Trump standing there as that Fabiola, that young lady who was saying that, you know, lock him up. I mean, truth of the matter is that both of those are not, I mean, the judicial system should carry its weight and do what it has to do. But we shouldn't be putting this invective and heightening the tension of the discussion in a way that could become, you know, dangerous and violent to our system. So I think it's a shock to the system, absolutely. And hopefully the American system will march along and do well. We've had a lot of glitches and bumps like this in our history. We had Watergate, we got through it. And once again, you know, I mean, hopefully we'll get through this one as well.
Okay, Mark Meirowitz joining us live from New York. Thank you very much for your insight.